Today, I want to speak about what happens when a family goes to war internally, specifically the Colombo family, which is a family prone to internal strife. As most of us know, the Colombos have a history that includes 3 wars, if you count the Profaci-Gallo War. Beneath the surface, the last Colombo War took place for all intent and purposes because its boss, Carmine Persico, just as many other bosses, would not give up control of the family while he was incarcerated for life, a subject I've mentioned many times. And the top 2 reasons why an incarcerated boss refuses to relinquish his position is money and power. Sometimes a family accepts this and exists peacefully, like the Lucchese family, whose official boss is still incarcerated. However, the same cannot be said for the Colombo family. So what takes place when a family goes to war? First and foremost, there's the point of ignition. In the case of the Colombos, that point of ignition took place when the family's acting boss felt that his power was coming to an end. And briefly, that person was Vic Arena, whose first mistake was thinking that the commission would endorse him as the official boss. His following mistake was going to Carmine Sessa, the family's consigliere, and requesting that he poll the captains to see if they were in support of him being the boss. Instead, Sessa sent word to Carmine Persico in prison regarding Arena's intentions. And naturally, Persico wanted Arena hit. So at this point, the 2 factions were officially in effect. In the first act of war, the Persico faction actually blundered. On June 20th, 1991, a hit team, which included Sessa, laid on Arena near his Long Island home. The only problem was, and fortunately for Arena, is that he spotted them and managed to drive away. And it was at that moment that the Colombo War took shape. One of the key components needed in a war is obviously an army, but once you establish your army, what's needed is finances. As the great Chinese general and philosopher Sun Tzu would say, where the army is, prices are high. So money is of the utmost importance. In the case of the Colombos, both factions put their rackets to the side and had guys in the street hunting for the opposition. And although the Persico faction was not short of funding, the Arena faction lucked out. The reason being is it possessed 2 of the wealthiest members of the family, John Staluppi and John Rosatti, who also happened to be the best of friends. Staluppi was inducted in 1988 and Rosatti shortly after in 1991. In short, both were entrepreneurs involved in car dealerships and numerous businesses as well as yachting. At the onset of the war, Arena met with Rosatti in a Long Island restaurant, and Rosatti gave him $50,000 to finance the war, which was a major benefit for the Arena faction. Fully aware that Rosatti and Staluppi had access to cars, Arena also requested that they supply cars for the hit teams to use. But Rosatti turned down his request, knowing the legal implications that lending the cars would cause. A small setback for Arena, although accessing cars was not that difficult for him. In the bigger picture, he had the money guys in his corner and would naturally milk them to finance the army of guys out there fighting for him. Rosatti also had a request of Arena, and he went to visit him one day at the Cafe Ann Social Club and told him that he wanted Greg Scarpa killed. Scarpa was a Persico loyalist and apparently abused one of Rosatti's employees. On April 4th, 1992, at 9:30 a.m., the FBI arrested Vic Arena in Valley Stream, Long Island. A search of the house he was in revealed a small arsenal of weapons, but it wasn't Arena's house. The house belonged to the daughter of alleged Gambino member Salvatore Reali. Shortly after Arena's arrest, Greg Scarpa, who led the charge for the Persico faction and doubled as an FBI informant, notified his FBI handler that it had come to the attention of the Persico faction that Staluppi and Rosatti were looking to switch sides and come over to their faction. What was a final push for them to switch sides was taking a trip to a federal prison in Oklahoma to visit and speak with Donnie Shax Montemarano, who was a longtime Persico loyalist. The move was also picked up on an FBI bug where members of the Persico faction discussed Staluppi and Rosatti's defection. We got those 2 guys with us, Staluppi and Rosatti. They're with us now, right? To which the other person responded, yeah. In essence, Staluppi and Rosatti evaluated the situation. With Arena now in prison, the FBI basically cut the head off. It wasn't a major blow to the faction, so they sold all their stocks and jumped ship, which was great and much welcome news for the Persico faction. And you could believe that transition did not come without a price tag. So Staluppi and Rosatti not only financed the Arena faction, but assisted the other side as well. They represented the golden geese of the family, and the fact that they initially sided with the opposition and funded them really didn't matter. They were given immediate absolution by Persico and his followers. They were the ultimate earners and considered assets to the family. I've spoken about the Lucchese family now inducting legitimate guys, but the Colombos had put this into practice over 30 years ago. The final murder of the Colombo War took place on October 20th, 1993, when a Persico hit team killed Joey Scopo, Vic Arena's underboss, outside his house in Ozone Park. The war was over, but now the government declared a new war, a legal one, on the members who were involved in the war. And in December 1993, a series of indictments were handed down. But the finances of the war were spared. Although Rosatti was arrested in 1994 for possession of an illegal .38, and he would plead guilty in exchange for a year probation, a good deal considering he was a convicted felon from an attempted auto theft charge back in the mid-70s. Let me quickly mention the super thanks icon found beneath the video for anyone who wants to help support the podcast. John Staluppi and John Rosatti both moved to Florida when the dust settled. There's much more to the both of them and their stories, but I just wanted to speak on their finance in the war on both sides. Naturally, following the war, the Persico faction was victorious and the family had to reshape itself. Many members of the Arena faction were welcomed back, just as Staluppi and Rosatti, and crews were put back together to have either Staluppi or Rosatti in their crew would possess the biggest earners in the family. And that decision obviously came from Carmine Persico, who put not only Staluppi but Rosatti in Teddy Persico's crew. He figured it's best to keep his golden geese in the family, and who better to keep a watchful eye on them than his nephew. I hope you enjoyed the video, and please remember to hit the like button if you haven't already. Thank you.